Hey, this is Alan from TEKOA, and today we're going to go over real quick how to input purchase orders in TEKOA ERP. We're going to start by going over here to the purchase order menu and selecting the orders menu item. You can see I have a couple of purchase orders in here already. I'm going to go ahead and click the Add New Purchase Order button up in the top right hand corner of the list screen here. And that's going to get me an input window where I can put in the primary information about this purchase order. The code value is really anything you want it to be. It's something that is meaningful to you or to your business about what this purchase order is for, or who it's from, or who it's for, the vendor, or a date, or something like that. I'm going to put in a date, and then it's a standard order. I want this order delivered to the Spokane warehouse. I can select it to be delivered to any of my warehouses. I'm going to choose Spokane. This is where I select the vendor that I am going to purchase from. I'm just going to say Uline. I'm going to leave the purchase order date as today and then identify myself as the buyer. I can put in a comment if I want to and then click the Create Purchase Order button. This is the purchase order maintenance window where I can edit some of those pieces of information that I just input, including the terms for the vendor, the tax schedule, how I want it shipped. I'm going to go ahead and select UPS ground, and for the FOB I'm going to select destination. I can put myself in there. I already put myself in there as the buyer. I can say that I want to release this today. My expected delivery date is on the 25th. The actual delivery date will show up when it's received, when the product is received, and the cancel date is the expiration date for this purchase order. If the vendor doesn't deliver by this date, then the purchase order is canceled. I'm going to go ahead and save changes here. Jumping over to the address tab here, you can see on the left, this is where the purchase order is being purchased from. In this particular case, it's being purchased from Uline. This is where I want the purchase order products delivered to, and I can select from my list of warehouses. You can see here, and it changes the address automatically. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at Spokane, save those changes. On the Details tab here, I input the items that I want to have on this purchase order. I'm going to select from the drop down here of here's my inventory item list. I'm just going to pick a random finished good item, or excuse me, raw material item. And if I click this advanced button, what that does for me is it shows me products that I've purchased from this vendor before, and I can select from an abbreviated item list of items that I have purchased from this vendor previously, but I'm not going to do that now. The item description, what warehouse I want this line delivered to. I'm going to order 1. Let's go ahead and we'll order 10 just for fun. I have received 0 so far. There's no discount for this individual line item. Then I click Add, and it adds that row to the purchase order. I'm going to input another one. I'm just going to select a random raw material here, and I want it delivered to Spokane. I want 10 of those as well. I have received none of them, and I'm going to add that. I'm going to select one more. Just drop down. I can type in something, and it'll search. So there we go. I found something there. I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm going to get one pail of this, and I haven't received any yet. And I'm going to add that. So I have these 3 line items on my purchase order. Jumping over here to the Transactions tab, you can see that here is a list of all of the things that have happened to this purchase order so far. So as I receive product and receive invoices for this purchase order, you will see the transactions stack up here. And why that is helpful is that you can come in at any time, pull up a purchase order, and see what has happened against that purchase order, and whether or not it's ready to be closed, whether or not there's items that have yet to be received or invoiced. And you can see that information here on the Transaction tab as the PO processes through the business process. I can add a comment here as long as I like, and then on the Totals tab I can input a discount for this particular purchase order or a freight amount. I'm going to go ahead and say that there's $100 worth of freight. $100 worth of freight. And you can see my totals there. I can override the sales tax amount if I want. In this particular case, they're raw materials from a tax-exempt. I'm making a tax-exempt purchase, so there's no sales tax. And then I go ahead and save those changes. Then I'm going to print this purchase order because I want to produce it into a PDF that I can email my vendors so that I can initiate the order. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the print button here. It's going to think about it for a second and then pop up this screen that says, what do you want to do with the PDF? I want to save it or open it. In this case, I'm going to open it, but normally I would save it and then email it off to my vendor. But in this case, I'm going to open it. There's my purchase order. Has all the essential purchase order information, including the vendor's address, where it's to be shipped to, the expected ship date, how I want it shipped, and the 3 items on that particular order. These barcodes represent the item codes that are listed here. The release button here, what this does is when I'm ready to make the purchase order, officially launch the purchase order, I want this to be in motion and have it be in action. I have delivered the purchase order PDF to the vendor. I'm ready to release it. I click the release button, and that releases this purchase order and it indicates that it is in motion. If I click this order information here, I can see based on the items on the that are on it, anything that has happened in particular to that to that item. So in this particular case, what I've done is I've created a purchase order, I've selected the vendor, I've checked the address, I've added details to it, and then created a freight amount on in the totals tab. I've printed it and I've emailed it off to my vendor, and we're good to go for the purchase order entry in TEKOA ERP.